Greetings, ladies and metal gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Why the Humans Are Blessed, written by FarmWitch4275. The community stared in horror and awe at the folder I had handed them. Their expressions changed from mildly dismissive to God help us in the space of a few minutes. Humanity's great secret had finally been revealed. Every species in the galaxy has their great secret, the reason behind uncanny luck, an evolutionary secret leading to a specific brain patterns for ideal tactics. The kind of greed that leads to economics that can overwhelm nations without ever firing a shot. A heartbeat that can be detected miles away because of its patterns, or feet with nerves or stimulators that can detect prey from hundreds of feet beyond normal. Every species had their special secret to their success, either in normal terms of evolution or in terms of society they build. Humans were no exception, but if only it was just that. A Deathworld Class 2, no small feat to survive on something like that, and an even greater feat to survive past planetary colonization, reunification conflicts, and so much more. Humans weren't above the norm by any means, by evolutionary or civilization. In fact, they had so much in common with the rest of the galaxy that they were barely noticed for almost a decade. A full 10 years of us living effective ignorance of their capabilities and true nature. By all circumstances, every race had their quirks, but these humans were so far out of the norm it boggled the mind. To the point where one would usually try to understand what the word boggle even meant in the first place. The Sarah and I were busy with other things, and so it took them 10 years to find out what was going on. If only we pressed them to do it sooner, we would have pressed the advantage, or negotiated surrender, or shut ourselves, or let the galaxy's cults overwhelm them and walk in open door when nobody was looking. All it took was one diplomat to see a human face to face and realize just how close to oblivion we all are. "Is this real?" the chairman asked, her scaly eyes glaring at me. "As real as it gets, my chairman. We all know the Serenai. They only lie when we ask them to. I got the last pieces of information I needed. Seems humanity lives under some very unique circumstances," I remarked. "That is putting it mildly. Not only are they within the border of the dark zone in the galaxy, it seems this particular area has some interesting history," a board member remarked. Interesting history is a very uncreative way of saying they live in what is essentially an eldritch graveyard, Borsman Kelther. The damn planet of theirs must have been active for millions of years with what the humans have going for them. Alone they are too average to even be considered competition. But this puts them leagues above everyone else," the chairman replied with an angry scowl. "The reports from the Serenai are terrifying. I actually recognize some of the names from galactic literature and ancient scriptures. This is weird. All in one place, and so many more than we ever heard before," Obokoboko remarked as he perused his folder. "The Serenai are already in the process of negotiating a full-term permanent alliance with the humans," I said. The entire board gasped in shock and glared at me. "You what?" "It's because of this. We confirmed it this morning. It's deep in human space, in the human home system, on a moon called Io, apparently," I said, and used my remote to activate a projector and show the picture for the board. The board sat in silence for a few moments, stunned into disbelief. Look at the size of that thing. Indeed, the image you are seeing is apparently one of many more, all across human space. You'll find one such place with one such entity in almost every system. Their homeworld, Earth, is the biggest culprit of them all. Sarah and I can't go near the system. Apparently, there are too many voices speaking at once, and all but the best trained psionics and spirit guides can go anywhere near the planet. Sarah and I have successfully counted no fewer than 200 entities present, and at this point I am agreeing with the Imbakai counselor on his assessment. Gaia should be reclassified as an entity itself. I have already taken liberties of placing trade and operational restrictions on certain members of the board's member species. It was needed, I said calmly. Good. Glad to see someone has a spark of initiative. Just make sure those restrictions do not interfere with the quotas or margins. The market cannot sleep, the chairman said, her face finally showing a smile. The market cannot sleep, we all repeated in turn. Right. I say first that we start drafting trade agreements with the humans. There is still a market for this, and we must get on top of it. We can become the de facto middleman for all negotiations. We can corner the market on human trade goods and services. No matter how low we make the price, profit is almost guaranteed, Broadsman Thuk said. Indeed. But where do we begin? Chairman replied. I have some ideas, if the board will hear them, I said. All present nodded in agreement, having no other resources at present. Very well, Cathas, let's hear the plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, we must consider the facts. Human goods, trade items, and services are of a significantly lower quantity than any goods we make, but of a considerably higher quality. We can manufacture 10 times what they can do in half the time that they do it. But here's the catch. What they make lasts 10 times longer, is 10 times more efficient and effective, 10 times cheaper, and 10 times more durable. What they lack in quantity, they make up for in quality. I think I know why, because it can wait a bit longer. Their reactors use half the fuel of ours do. Their guns hit harder, have longer ranges, and are cheaper to maintain, but come to the cost 3 times the manufacturing time. Their armor plating is also a considerably higher quality, allowing human-made ships to be used almost anywhere. The engine uses less fuel, their ships take longer to make and are more expensive, but actively perform out any ship in the galaxy by a country mile. Their medical industry is also 10 times what ours is, with better treatments and entire industrial sectors dedicated to effectively mass testing, acquiring and production of almost any new medication. If given incentives, they can find the cure or vaccine to any virus, bacteria, or plague that we have in our matter of months. The entertainment industry beats the galaxy at a large 30-1 already, and it's only been a year since their GullNet system became a public utility, one of which we all use, and for free no less. So, with all of this and so much more in mind, I know how to take advantage of this. I fully believe that one way or another, the documents I gave you will leak to the public, and the frenzy will start. People will pay for quality, and they will pay for a premium for it. If my theory is correct, even if we charge up to 2% commissions on tariffs, we will be rich to the point of absurdity. I got yelled at for the suggestions of such low price when the standard going rate was 20%. Down to a minimum of 10, the chairman held up a hand, silencing the yelling. Go on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my belief, based on present evidence, Serenai operations reports and many other factors, that humans are the next step to the galaxy's evolution as a whole. Their market goods will skyrocket in demand very soon, and their services will triple in price overnight. We all know what to do. This is the second nature to us, after all. But I know why. Regardless of your personal beliefs in the matter, the humans are some variation of blessed, by divine spark, no less. We should be expecting some interesting results soon, I said. Explain, I'm confused. The planet they hail from, evolutionarily speaking, the world known as Terra, Earth, or Gaia, is not a planet at all. It is a graveyard for the corporeal forms of gods, old ones, and other such anomalous entities. At first, human behavioral patterns and operations made no sense. Then, when I got the report, it hit me like a gas ball. The entire sector is an anomalous zone where gods go to die. Hence this picture, I said, once again showing an image of Io. This gents of the board is an entity of the Kavaskani, have always referred to as Olgatok, the Cold One, but humans know him instead as Odin. The picture itself was of a creature of massive size, curled up in a fetal position, frozen in the murky depths of the planet Io's core, clearly humanoid in form, with a large axe, a horned helmet, and various other accessories. I shall make it short for the benefit of this meeting. They had so many gods and faiths in their thousands of years. This is because the gods they worshipped actually went to the planet they lived on to lay their corporeal forms to rest. Humans have so many similarities in their religious texts and ancient legends. It turns out it isn't a coincidence. I displayed some pictures for the board. These ones of various creatures of myth and legend from human scripture, and side-by-side pictures of myths and legend from the galaxy at large, all perfected copies in different language, in a different style. The Skakandi Ulaka, Grakthan the Great, and the human Jormondor, the Great Serpent, the same entity just across time and space. Suddenly, I'm starting to get the picture. How so? I asked. I have a few humans working at our foundries and the machine facilities. We all know the humans have spread far beyond the homes by now, aside from the Serenai and Confederacy space, of course. And I've been receiving some odd reports from the foreman working with them. Suddenly, these reports make sense. Oboko replied. We all looked at him confused. Right, elaborate. These humans seem to have some kind of supernatural connection with the machinery they work with. A particular junction box that never worked suddenly worked when a human passed by. A beverage machine that had always malfunctioned no matter what we did with it suddenly worked perfectly after a human randomly got something from it, and has been working perfectly ever since. I always thought these were just coincidences. Then I saw it for myself. One of the cargo pod drones we used for logistics hauling had been out of order for several months. Technicians had been using every trick in the book to try and diagnose the issue with no progress. That cargo drone was just gone. Then one of the humans, not even a technician, wandered into the hangar, had a short conversation with the machines on duty, and wandered up to the machine. He smacked it with his hand 3 times. Just worked. It sprang to life, fired its engines, and went back to its normal cargo supply route. The human just shrugged and said, "Seems to work fine to me," then returned to his office. "I've never seen anything like that before," he said. "This reminds me of a situation with the border world. A human had volunteered to help as a doctor's assistant. She had plenty of foreign medical training, but not so much in terms of non-humans. But I've seen so many reports of this woman just inexplicably knowing what was going on with her patients. One guy, who had no real visible symptoms, had something similar to gut rot. Turns out it wasn't gut rot, it was just internal bleeding caused by a ruptured carapace mount. He went to 10 doctors, they all said gut rot. This one woman said no, it isn't, and found out what was actually going on. Almost as if she had some kind of sense or perception, like she saw something we couldn't," Boltzmann Kabiko remarked. "And also there seems to be something with humans socially. How is it that they have had no conflicts or wars in the galaxy since their arrival? Everybody just seems to, just like them. We have no idea why or how, but they have unneutral or positive diplomatic relations with nearly every race and empire. For some reason, they are the only species in over 10,000 years of galactic history that has spread no conflicts or wars since their arrival. Despite this, they have a fightingly powerful navy," Mr. Chairman said. "I've seen reconnaissance data from a few scout probes and trader ships. Their navy is terrifyingly well armed, and considering the quality of the warships they produce, terrifying. And that's another thing. Quality. We actually did a perfect comparison of our Starship standard armor plating versus theirs. I actually have the footage for that. Hold, please," Boltzmann Duck said, and reached for his remote. The projector started up and showed the side-by-side video of a human armor plate mounted flat with a laser cannon, a kinetic cannon, and a railgun aimed at the place. Burst the laser, which pierced through both sides. The difference is the human plate had a much smaller hole, indicating that it could take a lot more damage. The cannon was fired next, and the shell pierced through the alien plate, but didn't go through the human armor, leaving a large dent in the metal instead. The railgun was a different case, though. The test involved 20 armor plates of the same make and material mounted behind each other with an inch between them, and the railgun fired. The slug penetrated through 18 of the 20 alien plates, but only 7 of the human plates. "That is impressive," the chairman said. "I know, and this was just a baseline material test. It's all exactly the same metal, all mined from the same asteroid, all the same manufacturing process. And for some reason, the humans made stuff just so much better than ours. I still can't say why. In any case, now we know what we are dealing with, and this is the part that will probably get me in front of a firing squad," I said. They all looked at me with a kind of gaze I knew all too well. "What did you do?" the chairman asked, in a dangerously terrifying tone. "I sent an infiltration team to various points in the human star system, disguised as tourists. They collected samples of various anomalous objects that we know of. And, well, I clicked a button and showed an image of a so-called dragon on the screen. A creature which was considered a god in our mythology, specifically Erdograd, the cursed god, whose skeletal remains are burned in a cave on Mars. I then showed a few other slides depicting side-by-side comparisons of artwork made of him, every one depicting a huge red-scaled serpentine beast with fire breath, huge wings, and guarding a hoard of treasure. The board's jaws dropped. Erdograd was the basis of our entire mythology, and so-called first god depicted in almost all ancient texts as a winged, fire-breathing serpent that hoards treasure. It was his teachings of controlled greed that sent us into the stars in the first place, and his body was now entombed in a grave in the human home system. And suddenly, it makes sense, the chairman said, her voice gaining a certain sneaky tone. If I'm seeing these reports right, humanity is so, exceptionally strange, gifted, and psychotically insane, because they evolved from and live in a region that has been used by anomalous entities and supernatural beings as a graveyard for the corporeal forms. Did I about sum this whole nonsense up? She asked. I shrugged. Pretty much. At least that's what I can figure. No other explanation makes any sense, so that's the one I'm going with. There is more evidence to suggest that life on the planet evolved after a meteorite impacts and asteroid collisions, so I have a feeling that all life on the planet evolved from its shattered remains of gods or other entities' corpses that fell to the planet during its early stages. The reason human history, or at least in terms of religious development and mythology, is due to what I can only surmise as the planet being the perfect spot to drop off some last-minute wisdom or plots and schemes, before crawling into a comfy spot to ascend. At least, that's what I can tell, I replied, in earnest. Beware them, beware they, creatures of unnatural skill descended from the bones of gods. Those are strong-willed, a fair deal of a great luck. Fear them not, act with caution, not prowess. For them, for they, the children of broken gods, shall render unto you the teachings of 1,000 gods of war. Beware their deal, but fear their coin. Ballsman Obakoboko said, quoting a passage from a long-abandoned but still remembered scripture. Well, that certainly brings it into perspective, doesn't it? Are we screwed? I have to ask at this point. Should we just sign an alliance deal with them like the Saranai and abandon our franchise rights? Because I'm not sure they'll be bearer of bad news, but if even something as simple as armor plating is better than us, what about consumer goods? What about medical supplies? What about ship crafting? Can we even compete with that market? We are, after all, apparently dealing with creatures that have been blessed or cursed by supernatural entities. I mean, the armor test. That's a hell of a lot of gap in quality. 18-7. Can we even compete with that? I asked. No, we cannot. And from what the market is telling me, the Imbakai have already started negotiating contracts with a corporation known as Jupiter Drive Yards for the manufacturing of a new starship fleet. So we may be rapidly running out of time, Miss Chairman replied. Our only course of action is to start work as fast as possible, send every diplomat we can, and start doing everything we can to get in their good graces. That's what we do. If we can worm our way into their confidence, act as their middlemen for a licensing fee, and can maintain or hold out the market hegemony, we don't have a choice but to kiss their asses until their lips turn black. Get to it, Miss Chairman barked. We all saluted and wandered off to do our jobs. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.